I bet you didn't know the true story behind Bloody Mary. The wind whispered through the old oak tree outside, its branches scratching against the window pane. It was a cold night in Kansas, the kind that sent shivers down your spine even when you were inside. The old farmhouse creaked and groaned, its wooden bones settling as the wind howled. Inside, a group of friends huddled together, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single candle. The air hung heavy with anticipation, the silence broken only by nervous laughter and the occasional crackle from the fireplace. They were young, barely old enough to drive, but they were about to tempt fate in a way they never imagined. Their hearts pounded in unison, a drumbeat of fear and excitement. They were about to summon Bloody Mary. Sarah, Emily, Brian, and Mike had been friends since childhood. They'd grown up together in the small town of Ashton, their lives intertwined like the roots of the ancient oak tree that stood watch over their childhood adventures. Sarah, the brave one, was always ready for a challenge. Emily, the cautious one, tempered Sarah's impulsiveness with a healthy dose of skepticism. Brian, the jokester, used humor to mask his own anxieties. And Mike, the quiet observer, watched his friends with a mix of amusement and concern. They were inseparable, a tight-knit group who shared secrets, dreams, and a thirst for the unknown. Tonight, their bond would be tested as they ventured into the realm of the supernatural. They gathered in Sarah's attic, a place where they'd spent countless hours lost in games, laughter, and whispered stories of the strange and unexplained. The air felt different tonight, charged with an energy that sent shivers down their spines. It started as a dare, as most things do with teenagers. They were sharing scary stories, each one trying to outdo the other with tales of ghosts, demons, and things that go bump in the night. The conversation inevitably turned to Bloody Mary, the legendary spirit who could be summoned by chanting her name in front of a mirror. "I dare you," Brian chuckled, his voice a nervous tremor in the stillness of the attic. He looked at Sarah, knowing she was the most likely to accept the challenge. "I dare you to summon Bloody Mary." Emily shivered, pulling her sweater tighter around her. "Don't be stupid, Brian," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't know what you're messing with." Sarah, never one to back down from a dare, squared her shoulders and met Brian's gaze. "Fine," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Let's do it." Mike, usually the quiet one, surprised them all by speaking up. "I'm in," he said, his voice firm. Emily shook her head, but the look of determination on her friends' faces told her she was outnumbered. An old, ornately framed mirror stood against the attic wall, its surface dulled with age. They gathered in front of it, their reflections staring back at them, distorted and unfamiliar in the flickering candlelight. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She closed her eyes and began to chant, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." The air grew colder, the silence in the room becoming almost unbearable. They chanted her name 3 times, then again and again. Nothing happened. Brian let out a nervous laugh. "See, I told you, it's just a silly story." But as he spoke, the candle flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the attic walls. The mirror, once dull and lifeless, seemed to shimmer, its surface rippling like water disturbed by a gentle breeze. They stared at their reflections, their laughter dying in their throats. Their faces, once filled with youthful bravado, were now etched with a growing sense of unease. Something was wrong. Section 5. A cold breath. The temperature in the attic plummeted, a wave of icy air washing over them like a cold breath from an open grave. The hairs on the back of their necks stood on end, and an instinctive fear, primal and undeniable, gripped their hearts. The candle flame, buffeted by an unseen force, danced wildly, casting grotesque, elongated shadows that writhed and twisted on the attic walls. The mirror no longer reflected their images, but swirled with an eerie, opalescent mist. Emily whimpered, her eyes wide with terror. "I don't like this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Let's stop, please." But it was too late. A low growl, guttural and inhuman, seemed to emanate from the depths of the mirror, sending shivers down their spines. The growl morphed into a mournful wail, piercing the silence of the attic like a shard of broken glass. They were no longer alone. The mirror, once a familiar object, transformed into a portal of terror. The swirling mist coalesced, taking on a horrifying life of its own. A face, contorted in rage and agony, materialized in the glass. Its eyes burning with an infernal light fixed on them, pinning them to the spot with a gaze that spoke of unspeakable horrors. Sarah screamed, a high-pitched sound born of pure terror. Emily sank to the floor, burying her face in her hands, her sobs the only sound that dared challenge the eerie silence that followed. Brian stood frozen, his face ashen, his eyes locked on the apparition in the mirror. Only Mike seemed to find his voice. "Run!" he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. They didn't need to be told twice. They scrambled to their feet, their fear lending them a speed they never knew they possessed. They stumbled over each other in their haste to escape the attic, their flight fueled by a terror so profound it defied rational thought. The friends barely spoke as they fled Sarah's house, the image of the horrifying face in the mirror seared into their minds. Sleep offered no escape, their dreams haunted by the memory of that night. The days that followed were a blur of hushed whispers and nervous glances over their shoulders. The carefree joy that had once been their trademark was gone, replaced by a pervasive sense of dread. They avoided each other's gaze, each haunted by their own private demons. The bond they'd shared since childhood, once unbreakable, now felt fragile, strained by the weight of their shared terror. The experience had changed them, leaving an indelible mark on their souls. They were no longer the same carefree teenagers who had dared to summon Bloody Mary. They had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back. Years have passed since that terrifying night in the attic. The friends, now scattered across the country, still bear the scars of that encounter, both visible and unseen. They rarely speak of the incident, the memory too painful to revisit. Was it a collective hallucination fueled by fear and suggestion? A trick of the mind playing on their deepest fears? Or had they truly opened a door to another realm? A realm where ancient evils lie in wait? The answer, like the swirling mist in the mirror, remains elusive. The truth, as is often the case with such encounters, lies somewhere in the shadows, a chilling reminder that some mysteries are best left unexplored.